Hello, and welcome back to Circulating Conversations, where we talk about library topics, genre deep dives, and book recommendations. I'm your host, Rachel, an Adult Services Librarian, and I have with me my guest,
Elaine, and I work with Rachel upstairs at the reference desk. I'm the library reference assistant.
Thank you for joining me, Elaine.
Wonderful to be here. We're going to be talking about books and holidays. It can be a better pairing than that?
Right, yeah. In honor of the holiday season, I wanted to just take a look at 6 book traditions and holidays from around the world. So to get started, the first one we're going to talk about is a Jewish tradition. It's actually pretty cute. So it has its roots in medieval times, where basically children going to Hebrew school in Europe for the first time would lick honey from the Torah or like a sheet with the Hebrew alphabet on it. So basically it was just to connect learning with sweetness. And so I actually found out about this tradition from our head adult service librarian, Dusty. So she had a friend who has a Jewish background and mentioned it to her, so their family would do that. And I thought it was really cute. So I did look into it, and I can't find much on it. And so I don't know how prevalent it is in the modern day.
It's still a great way to be able to try to introduce a new reader to, whether it be the alphabet, whether it be to numbers, whether it be just to a subject matter. Not that I endorse having food as being the primary means of trying to encourage somebody, but you would be able to associate in a very positive manner, potentially, the facts of learning with, really having something that you yourself like, which would be honey. So, yeah, great way. If that works, I'm all for it.
Right. I think it's just a cute tradition. I did find evidence of it still being used a little bit. For example, I did find a Hebrew school, an article within the last 5 or 10 years that mentioned still keeping that tradition alive. But I think at this point it is maybe something that individual families or communities might choose to do rather than a widespread tradition. So I would definitely be interested to know if anyone comes from the Jewish background from our listeners, if they still practice that tradition, if it's something that they've seen before or heard of before.
Or if they've modified the tradition too, versus having honey, having some, whether it be another food product or whether it be some other activity related to it, but that still promotes that same sort of connection, would be great to know.
Yeah. And so if you have, definitely put a comment letting us know, because I would be interested to know. And if anyone takes inspiration from that tradition, all I'll say is please don't do it on our library books. We don't want sticky children's books.
That's true. That's true.
All right, I'll pass this to Elaine.
Sure. The next one we were going to talk about is one that we were able to find that started or really concentrate right now in Italy, but it is more of a global movement, and it's called what's called book fairies. Now, this is not about sprinkling pixie dust around the area or anything like that, okay? But what it is that people have left specifically marked or stickered books around in public areas. Think parks, think public transportation, like books or buses or trains or something like that. And they're leaving these books out there for people to find. And the stickers encourage the individual who locates this book to read it, and then to pass it on to other individuals so they can then enjoy the book and what it may be showing them. It's not specific as into the message. They've kind of like made sure that the genres are all represented. But the big thing about it is that they track the books via social media. So, as you read the book, they encourage you to get onto social media and kind of post a review, as well as say, where did you find it? So you see this book traveling all over the country, in this case Italy, Or if it goes across borders, then where is it going? A lot like when we track the sea turtles here in Florida, or they've GPS tagged them or something,
Yes.
and they were able to see where they are in the world and kind of do the pinging from it. But they're relying, in this particular case with books, for people to self-report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you are right. It is becoming a global tradition. From what I understand, it started in Milan, in Italy, and part of that was because only half the population could read. So they wanted to, encourage people to read, and they figured that would be a good way to do it, is by having people who are avid readers and enjoy reading kind of sharing what they read with other people.
Exactly. And a lot of these traditions that we're going to be bringing up in today's episode are all about really national efforts of trying to stop the decline of reading abilities and reading levels of their population. And we're not talking just strictly kids. We're talking both them, teenagers, and adults.
Of course.
And just making sure that people are aware that reading is a fun and productive activity.
Yes, and I just also want to mention, if that sounds interesting to anyone listening, being a book fairy, there is an online community, like Elaine said, through social media, but they also have a specific website called, I believe, inbookfairies.com. So where they have a blog and you can become an official book fairy. So if that's something that interests you, I encourage you to check that out.
For sure. And there's a lot of opportunities available right here in the United States to also participate, not in the book fairy movement, but just in movements to be able to promote books. One here in Lake County is the Free Little Libraries.
Yes.
It's the same sort of thing. They deposit books inside of it. A person would open up the free library, little door. It almost looks like a huge bird house. And you open up the door, you take out a book, but the intention is that you leave a book.
Right.
So you're exchanging books in that regard, but everybody gets access to it. And of course, there's plenty of opportunities online to be able to give reviews and stuff like that. So. There's a lot of ways that you can still participate within the movement, but not specifically with book fairies.
Now, speaking of the good old US of A,
okay,
we're going to take our traditions here. So we don't have many what I would call specific holidays, but we do have a lot of observances, whether it be monthly, weekly, or a day, where we celebrate different genres or a certain type of book or writing a book, and as well as author birthdays. So some I just wanted to highlight. So, for example, in April, there is National Poetry Month. And for all of the ones that I mentioned, I encourage you to check out your library and see if they do anything for that. A lot of the times libraries might do a display, even maybe a program related to it. So for example, for this past April in 2023, our library made a poet tree. So we actually built a tree out of craft materials, and someone could write a poem, no matter what age, on a leaf, and then hang that up on the tree, and that was up for the whole month of April. Another month is June, which is Audiobook Appreciation Month. We did a display at our library again, supporting audiobooks. I specifically tailored it around audiobooks that have won awards from the Audiobook Awards. We also have National Cookbook Month in October, which I know we've done a display for that too.
We have, and it's very, very popular.
Yes.
We do enjoy our cookbooks here.
We do. As far as author's birthday, a big one in the youth department would be Dr. Seuss's in March. Definitely a display, and I think maybe even sometimes a program.
Sometimes, yes. I do know that the local schools also celebrate Dr. Seuss Day, whether it be with parades where people carry their favorite Dr. Seuss book, or they dress up for it.
And then in September, we have Library Sign-Up Month. And then also at the end of the month, we have banned book weeks, bringing attention to those books that people tend to try and censor. And we always think it's important that literature is open to everyone and that not be censored. So we always want to bring attention to that week. Again, that might be something that we just bring awareness to during that week, or have a display of books that have been known to be often censored or get a lot of
just critique,
critique.
And bad publicity or
challenges. That's
exactly.
the word I was looking for.
There you go. Right now we are in the middle of the National Novel Writing Month. They abbreviate the thing, so NaNoWriMonth.
Yeah.
I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. But what that's basically doing is it's promoting writing, which is, of course, another form because you have to read it out loud. But the goal is at the end of the month to have created a novel by that point, with getting feedback from other individuals and that sort of thing. So, besides just reading in general, we also are promoting the writing side of it also.
Right. And then just a few important days coming up in December related to authors and reading is Jan Brett, the children author's birthday, is going to be on December 1st. So she is known for writing the children's books The Hat and the Mitten. The Dewey Decimal Systems Day is December 10th. And Jane Austen's birthday is December 16th. So she's known for her romances like Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. So yeah, again, just check out your local libraries and see, what they might be doing in celebration of these different authors' birthdays and book observances.
For sure. Well, going along with just promoting local resources as well as the publishing and sale of books, we have what's called book towns, and that is, again, it's a global area, and it's a designation by a local community as being a book town. And the fundamental characteristic of these things is that there is really a large number of independent bookstores in the area, whether they be secondhand, whether they be just there for the sale, like, think Barnes and Noble, think something like that. But there's just a large concentration of that, and they're in there and they're promoting books, they're promoting book swaps, they're promoting book festivals. They all usually have a festival associated with them. As well as they have very strong connections to the local community to publish and promote local culture, ideas, the authors that reside within that area, but you can apply for that sort of thing. So I kind of liken this to like Mount Dora. You can't walk down the streets of Mount Dora and not come across an antique store. In this particular case with the book town, think of all those antique stores being swapped out for bookstores. Right.
And they have to fit certain parameters, right, to be considered a book town.
I believe so. It's usually it's like a rural area or a village, so you're not talking large communities, okay? But it's more than just two stores. I mean, you're talking probably about, upwards of 10 to 12 bookstores within a certain, square area. And the very first one that was actually labeled a book town was in Wales. It was on a town called Hay-on-Wye. I'm hoping I pronounced that last word correctly. But that was established in 1977. And, again, it's all about bookshops. It's all about the festivals. They really have noted literary festivals that occur in these areas that attract a lot of readers, a lot of booksellers. They want to participate in these particular events. And for Leesburg, we happen to have our upcoming literary festival that's going to occur the first weekend in March.
Yes.
So, hey, if we get a couple of bookstores here in Leesburg, we might be able to apply for that sort of status.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure if there is an equivalent of that in the U.S. yet, if we have anything that's like officially considered a book town.
Not within the small parameters of it being a rural village, or,
Right.
you know, because you're thinking very small population, very small area. Now, because you can easily say that, you know, like New York City with all the publishing houses and stuff like that would be the equivalent, but New York City is huge.
Right.
All right, so I'm trying to think of something that's the size of Leesburg that has the same equivalent, and like yourself, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head that would be that sort of
Right. I think it would be cool, though, if we could start having those book towns here as well.
It would be. Just think of it from a cultural perspective and of what that could possibly entail. I mean, you could easily have one store devoted to one particular genre versus another one. But then have that exchange of ideas, the sight of people as you're walking down the street, they're sitting outside with maybe a coffee
Right.
and just sitting there reading. I mean, wonderful visual that you're able to get from that.
Now, I wouldn't call it obviously a book town, but, asking that question of do we have an equivalent, what sparked, it made me think of bookmobiles, just in how we try and serve the rural community. So, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically like a library on wheels. And that way you can get books reaching out to the rural community that might be far out and not close to a library.
Exactly.
So now we're going to head to Sweden. So Sweden has a week-long reading holiday called Laslov. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Now, I do want to state that this is not something that originally catered to the idea of reading. So this week-long break already existed. It's their autumn break that happens towards the end of October, beginning November.
Yeah, they say it's the week 44.
Yes. So that's called Höstlov, which translates to autumn break, and then they changed it to Laslov, which translates to reading break. So basically this started back in 2016. It was a rebrand to draw attention to the importance of reading and literacy, and to encourage Swedish children to spend at least some of that break that they have off reading. So it was government backed. The government invested 5 million kronor, which is equivalent to 562,000 US dollars, towards the initiative at promoting reading. And that was kind of in response to declining scores in international literacy tests. So again, going back to a lot of these having to do with wanting to encourage people to read when seeing that decline in literacy.
Yeah, and again, this was across the population. And, besides just saying to everybody, please go out and just read a book, they actually develop a lot of activities around this holiday in which they encourage like teens to read to younger people to pick up a certain number of books from a library, and again, reading to their younger siblings, reading to, the reverse, a younger person reading to a senior citizen, to really just kind of cross-populate and bring the joy of reading to their whole community.
Right. And again, it's not just reading as well. So they also do writing competitions. Libraries, bookstores, and museums are involved with promoting literacy at this time. They also, try and give out free books. So I just think that it was a really good rebrand to have a break that already exists in their culture and to just add this special meaning to it, focusing on something really important.
And don't just assume that it's strictly about a physical book.
Right.
Other means of the art community, whether it be painting, whether it be music, they all kind of kick in as a support to this particular initiative to try to keep reading as being a core fundamental activity for their community. And so they're going to be putting on festivals and events that support the book reading initiative, that just shows their support, but also encourages further activity in the arts community.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just think that is a really special holiday. Again, in my research, I found it to be called an official holiday, but then at the same time, I had problems finding proof of that.
Sure.
And it could just be because a lot of the websites talking about it were in Swedish. So
that's true too, because if you start typing in some of these terms like Laszlo, all right, we don't usually have that particular letters in our alphabet when we're typing it in on our computers.
Right. So again, if any listeners know more about that, maybe they have a Swedish background and they've heard of it before, I'd love to know more as well. So drop that in the comments.
Sure. Love to hear from you. We're going to wrap this up with a final event that occurs in Iceland. And I know I'm going to kill this name. All right. So I do apologize ahead of time. Jólabókaflóð.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Which translates to Christmas book flood. Okay. And basically what this is on Christmas Eve, the community is encouraged to exchange gifts, and that gift is a book. And the intent is that the individual will then spend the remaining portion of Christmas Eve reading this book into the wee hours of the morning, in an appreciation for reading.
Right.
It started in World War II, and basically because Iceland did not have any restrictions on the distribution of paper. So for them, during that time period where all the rations were happening, paper was not one of those items that they kind of limited. So they made a point of printing out as many books as they possibly could do, and because they were so readily available, people would buy those and give those as Christmas gifts. So that's how the tradition started, as far as we were able to tell here. And it's really big because the booksellers leading up to this time period would put out large book catalogs and encourage people to, okay, here's our catalog of upcoming books. Give them, look interesting to you. Here's how to buy them. They really make it convenient for an individual to get a book from something that's upcoming.
Yes.
Versus us like going on to Amazon and just kind of doing a blanket search sort of thing. They really kind of promote the fact that these are these books and you can give these.
Right. And I think that that's so interesting because it means that it is so big within that culture to give a book for Christmas or Christmas Eve and spend that time with your family reading, that even the publishers are like, and maybe this sounds a bit cynical, but capitalizing on that.
Exactly.
But I still think it's such a good tradition.
And as a result of the focus on that particular day and that event, Iceland actually has the highest percentage or majority of the population loving reading. And so contrary to a lot of the other festivals that we've been speaking about, where the objective is to promote reading because the skill level and the reading ability has dropped over the years, Iceland is the opposite in that they've had this going on for so long and people have embraced it.
Yes.
That their skill level and reading ability is quite high, and the majority of their population participate in this event.
Yes. And And I really would love to see that worldwide. I really hope some of the initiatives that we've talked about that other places around the world are taking can really up people's love of reading. Because I do think people sometimes, especially kids, I think they might find a love of it when they're young. I think they do find joy in going to a library if they have one close and picking out books and having mom or dad read to them. But then I think when they start going to school and it becomes assignments, that sometimes that love can lower.
That joy leaves us, that's for sure.
Right.
But it also doesn't have to be a massive movement. It can start locally, just within your own family.
Yes.
Establish some particular day or around an event that you can yourself promote. Okay, we're going to exchange books this time, and we're going to read for X amount of time. It really allows you to take a physical break from your your activities, from your life, to be able to enjoy something that you haven't had an opportunity, or you didn't give yourself an ability to with your schedule to experience.
Yes. And I will again just say libraries and bookstores as well, to a degree, just for obvious reasons, are always going to promote reading. Especially, start young in youth. There are tons of programs, story times, giving away free books for one book, one community. Summer reading.
Definitely.
Which is, the whole summer break pretty much. We're promoting reading.
But also don't think that you have to physically come to the library just to participate with the library. Because if you happen to have whether it be a physical condition or just the lack of transportation to get here, there are programs available that you could apply for that will actually have books delivered to you. All right. Whether it be that, your eyesight is bad, we can get books through the Library of the Blind.
Yeah.
As well as we do have books by mail. All right. But again, there are programs that you have to apply for. But once you get approved for it, the library itself is completely open to you. We just send it to you in a different manner.
Right.
And of course, digital libraries are exploding.
Yes. Yes. So at the very least, if you don't want to come in, look into what apps your library has available to you, like Libby, maybe Access 360, depends on what library you use, Hoopla, where you can get access to audiobooks and ebooks and, graphic novels, even in some cases, TV shows, music, and movies. So, always check out what your library has available for you.
For sure.
All right. So we went through all of our traditions and holidays. So I just want to say again, thank you, Elaine, for joining me on this episode.
Thank you for having me here.
And I hope to everyone listening that they may have found some inspiration, or at least, have some interesting facts that they're leaving with from this episode. So thank you to everyone listening. And I hope you will join us again on the next episode of Circulating Conversations.